it's West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we've trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
Yes, you do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
We came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
All personnel aware of the proper protection of women. This includes all personnel identified as staff and role players, CIDs, and support staff. Sneeze, eyes, throat, and growing infection is mandatory and should be worn at all times by personnel directly involved in or near the scenario. Always check your mask prior to use to ensure there are no cracks and the mask is in safe working condition.
Should I put the water in there now? Yeah, go ahead. This is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah.
Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude.
Fiend's yelling at me.
Help me. Your hands. Help me. Your hands. Back away.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place.
Okay.
So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team.
Uh-huh.
So they regenerated the idea of
I see.
activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
Uh-huh. Okay. And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing. just like on the street? or
Depends.
is
I
it, like,
mean,
house?
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, unarmed mugging,
Yeah,
yeah.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else.
Yeah.
That we might be faced with.
Uh-huh.
And that's what's great about Urban Shield is, we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Good morning, everybody. This is The Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, back with you again to fill in for Bill while he is off in Cuba, is my understanding. I guess getting a lot of cigars and old 50s cars and listening to a lot of jazz, telling Fredo he knew it was him. Things people do in Cuba. We have a great show for you today. Actually, this is a really good, you've tuned in for a good one because yesterday was a really interesting news day, and we're going to go through all of it here on the Bill Press Show today. I have got a lot of good guests for you. We got a lot of good topics to discuss, so stay with us for the next 3 hours. I think it's going to be a really, really good, interesting morning. I have, of course, with me in the studio, as always, Peter Ogburn, executive producer.
Hello, Evan.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I'm happy to be back. I have Elisa's in the back there.
Hey, good morning. Good to be here.
It's good to see you.
Is it a happy belated anniversary to you?
It is. I had my third wedding anniversary on Tuesday.
Congratulations.
And the third wedding anniversary is marked by two things. One, leather is the gift, which I pulled off very well. I got a really cool bag for my wife, and she loved it. And also, it's the one where you use a gift certificate to pay for your anniversary dinner. And let me tell you something. And the thing is, the food's great, and then you feel amazing.
Yes.
You're like,
that's so true.
You're like, here you go.
Did you have a discussion with your beloved before about?
No, I booked the whole dinner.
Beautiful.
It was wonderful. I booked the whole dinner. It was great. And then we got there, and I was like, oh, yes, by the way, I also have this gift certificate.
Beautiful.
Which I got from my landlord. For being
it's awesome.
So it was awesome, and it was. Let me tell you, the dinner was amazing. Actually, we went to a really classy place. We went out. We had a good time. It's just like that's what we realized. I'm like, this is what happens for third anniversary. It's like now you're like high fiving because you're like, yeah, guys,
slow descent, man.
Get 2 appetizers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Go crazy.
Spring for it.
Whatever you want, baby.
We don't have to split dessert.
Look at us. Jamie Benson is Saul's back there. I'm sure, and if you have any tips about Bill, about your favorite gift certificates, you can call him and tell him about it. And Cyprian Bolding is doing the video, as always. Nice to see you, too. So we talked about that. We talked about my my cheapskate anniversary dinner, but it was great. It was good. 3 years of marriage feels like none. It was awesome. So that was all good.
Congratulations.
We're gonna somehow segue from that into the NSA and things, but I think the best way to do that is to let's do the headline thing. So I'm supposed to say, but first.
There you go.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Here at the Bill Press Show, I have the Oreo flavor beat down on lock. This is what I do.
Okay.
So for the summer, Oreo is rolling out a new flavor of cookie. It is the s'mores Oreo. The s'mores-eo.
S'moreo?
The s'moreo.
Okay.
Rumors were flying around back in February. This is a trend, right? People will say, oh, wouldn't it be great if Oreo made blank kind of cookie? And then Oreo just goes and makes it. So they just kind of scour social media for the goofiest ideas.
Interesting.
And then they go make it. They did this with the red velvet Oreo last year. They're doing it now with the s'mores Oreo. They are expected to hit shelves tomorrow. It's a limited edition Oreo filled with chocolate and marshmallow cream that's wedged between 2 graham cracker Oreos.
Now, that actually sounds like a pretty good one. They've had some other ones that seem like they have. I don't understand this trend really of the Oreo, sort of different kinds of Oreos, but this one sounds like I could eat this.
I follow along with it mostly because I have children who love. Who am I kidding? I'm eating half the box. We get them. I mean, I'm not trying to say I'm not.
At least you have an excuse to buy them.
They had one that was like a Rice Krispie treat Oreo, which was like a vanilla cookie situation, and then the cream had like Rice Krispie treats mixed into it, which is just a total waste. It's not good.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. But this one does sound pretty good. And it's a strange. Have you noticed like now like everything's about like customized products like this? I mean, like M&M's is advertising a thing like get your mom M&M's with her name on them for Mother's Day, things like that.
These Coke cans with people's names on them.
Oh yeah, it's weird.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's strange. It's a new world of like your candy is responding to you.
Yeah. I'm forming a very close personal relationship with the things that are killing me. I think that's good. Robin Thicke, the singer, and his girlfriend have apparently a real problem with their dog. They have a tiny little dog named Bency who can't stay out of their weed. The dog...
Wait, the weeds in the yard?
No,
or is this a different...
they're marijuanas. They had their bag of pot that the dog got into. So they freaked out. They took the dog to the hospital. They pumped the dog's stomach out. Everything was fine. Everybody's okay. Well, 2 days later, the dog got back into the weed. They had to take it back. His girlfriend posted on Instagram. Her name is April Lovey. Put on Instagram a little picture of the dog saying everything's fine. He's doing great. Bency is okay.
I bet he is.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine.
I mean, this dog knows what he likes.
Yeah, pretty smart dog.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they've ever heard of a box with like a lock on it.
Guys, it's not that hard.
Like, I mean, most people just have it. It's just lying around in a large trash bag, right?
Here's the thing, guys. Shelves.
Yeah, right.
All right? Do you have a shelf? I mean, because if you've got a shelf, you're fine. You just put an open container on a shelf high enough the dog can't you'd be okay.
I mean, I don't want to say that we're getting a pattern here of bad decisions by Robin Thicke.
Yeah, right.
But it does seem like we can kind of decide. I mean, maybe he's not the guy you go to for a lot of life advice. And I think how to store your weed is number one on the list at this point.
Pretty high up there.
Yeah.
And the founder and CEO of GoPro, Nick Woodman, made a verbal agreement with his college roommate about 10 years ago. He told him that he wanted to give him 10% of the proceeds he received from the sales of his GoPro action camera. And this week he made good on that promise. $229 million in company shares is what he gave his college roommate.
Wow.
Because one time he told him, hey, man, I'm going to be big and you're going to get 10% of this company. And he lived up to his word.
Wow,
and
talking
you know
about
that roommate
integrity.
probably like some sort of like liberal arts major.
Yeah,
It's
right.
He's like slaving away right now, like he's like writing something like that. You know, it's like his buddy like who's out there inventing a small camera that's going to change the entire way everybody films everything.
The way that bros film their action sports.
Right, and he's like, let me tell you what I know about. Faulkner. You know what I mean? Like it's like that's what it is.
Yeah.
I had a roommate in college like that. That was like one of those like go-getter types, and I was like, I'm just here reading the news.
Yeah,
I'll be fine. Yeah,
I'm good.
Pretty good. That's pretty cool. What's Bill going to bring you back from Cuba? Do you think?
I gave him a very clear directive. I said I really want some rum from Cuba, and I don't smoke cigars, but I will smoke a Cuban cigar.
Sure.
Yeah. So he's supposedly, if anybody's watching, I'm sure he's probably not going to do this. He's going to smuggle me some rum and cigars.
Oh, great.
So we'll see.
I get it's still smuggling. It hasn't really opened up yet.
Yeah, it hasn't totally. Who knows what's going to happen? It's like Midnight Run. The Bill Press edition.
I can't.
I don't want to know how he's going to smuggle them back. But
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just want to know. No. I'll just be happy to get them.
Oh man, Bill Press. You know what Bill Press? He's just gonna walk nonchalantly through the airport with like that, like dern.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a scene at a blow. Yeah.
Right. He's just gonna be like, he's gonna handing off little Bill Press like labeled bags.
He has a great story about because he's been to Cuba a couple of times.
Yeah,
and how he went through customs, and this is back when he was on CNN, and he said that he came through customs after going to Cuba. He'd gone through like a different country. So, have you gone anywhere else? And he said he wrote down Cuba. And then he said, oh, wait, no, I probably shouldn't do that. So then he scratches it out and asks for another form. They bring him one. And then he says, like, definitely not Cuba. And then he says, wait a minute, I might get caught in this lie. Maybe he should just own up to it and say Cuba. So he has to ask for another form, and they bring him a third form, and then he still can't make up his mind, so they just left it blank. And it's just like this whole freak out, all because he went to Cuba for 2 days.
Cuba? Question mark?
Yeah, yes.
There it is.
Yes. 321 Fake Street in Cuba.
International Man of Mystery, Bill Press.
Yeah, apparently. Apparently.
All right. Well, listen, I did promise you at the top of the show that we had a lot of actual things to talk about, and we do have a lot of actual things to talk about. I'm going to give out the phone number before we move into this next topic we're going to talk about. This is 866-55-PRESS. 866-55-PRESS is how you call us. And what we want to talk about is NSA and the surveillance state, because Rand Paul yesterday did another one of these sort of stunty kind of filibusters, long speeches on the Senate floor about the NSA and about trying to stop the Patriot Act and stop some of the surveillance that's been going on. Started in the Bush administration, it's continued through the Obama administration, and it was another moment where we see this libertarian Rand Paul sort of taking the front seat on this, taking the lead on this issue. And I'm interested to know what you listeners think about the NSA and think about the surveillance state and think about where we are right now on this. If you think Rand Paul is right about it, or if you think that someone like President Obama, who has argued that we need to keep a significant amount of this surveillance going, is right on this. So 866-55-PRESS, call in. We're going to talk about Rand Paul a little bit now first, but we'll talk a little bit about what we want to hear from you about what you think about it. So, can we play some audio now?
Let's do it.
All right.
We got time before the
break. Let's jump in and talk about a little bit of this. So just to set the stage, we're talking about the Senate floor. It's about 1 p.m. yesterday. Rand Paul comes down. They're having a vote against, on the Patriot Act coming up. There's a big push to try to keep some of the surveillance stuff in place ahead of this Friday, when some of the surveillance things will expire and the administration is going to end them. So Rand Paul comes down to the Senate floor and he just starts talking about this bulk data collection that we have heard so much about the NSA collecting all your phone records.
The bulk collection of all Americans' phone records all of the time is a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment.
So that's pretty direct. So now we know where we're at with Rand Paul. This is not a guy who's waffling on this issue. We have seen a lot of politicians still sort of talking about, the war on terror and the need for some of this stuff and the need to keep it going. Rand Paul is pretty hardcore when it comes to we need to just end these programs. He talks about, the Patriot Act, he's pretty direct on it.
Yeah.
He talks about it being the most unpatriotic of acts.
There comes a time in the history of nations when fear and complacency allow power to accumulate and liberty and privacy to suffer. That time is now, and I will not let the Patriot Act, the most unpatriotic of acts, go unchallenged.
So again, this is pretty bold. This is pretty really bold for a politician in Washington, especially for a guy running for president who is going to be, who theoretically wants to be the guy in charge of this stuff. There was a time not too long ago that this would have been a really dangerous political stance to take, and we don't know where Rand Paul's presidential campaign will wind up. He has a lot of baggage he's carrying around, a lot of issues he's carrying around, difficulties he's dealing with, a lot of things. But it doesn't seem that this particular stance has hurt him that much so far.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays moving forward, right? Because the Patriot Act has been one of those boogeymen for people like the Bill Press Show for a long, long time. And, we haven't liked it this whole time. We didn't like it when it first came around. It seemed to be pretty overreaching. And the hero that's coming up to, save the day on the Patriot Act is Rand Paul, who has a lot of problems for this audience and what we do on this show.
Right.
But you can't deny the fact that he is the most outspoken critic of this government overreach. So we have to at least give him credit for that.
Yeah,
Or not, 866-55-PRESS.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 866-55-PRESS. Call in and talk to us about Rand Paul. I'm interested to hear what people think about him and about this effort that he has taken to try and stop this NSA data collection and the whole thing with the, stop the whole thing with the spying in general. This is this again, I mean, everybody who's listening remembers this. I mean, this is such a huge component of national security starting in 2001. And, what Rand Paul saying in that last thing we just heard about power and complacency, fear and complacency allowing power to accumulate. This is a guy basically declaring that we no longer need this stuff and we've gone too far down the road with it. He does take a direct sort of swipe at Obama about this, saying that the president, this is up to the president to actually determine whether or not this program remains.
The president began this program by executive order. He should immediately end it through executive order.
So again, this is the separation. You have a Republican nominee, a Republican candidate for president standing on the Senate floor, criticizing the president. That's not surprising. But what he's criticizing him over is something that a lot of the people who are in the president's base would really like him to do. So it's just a very strange circumstance that we have with Rand Paul every now and then. And it's interesting to see what impact it'll have on the election. Also, what impact it'll have in Washington, because the last time Rand Paul did this, he had a lot of support. He had a lot of senators coming down to the floor and helping him out. Ted Cruz came down there, I believe, at some point. For this last one, I think he had Mike Lee showed up, who is a senator from Utah, another libertarian-leaning senator from Utah, and I think that's it. Did Ron Wyden?
There's one other one, and I can't remember who it was. I don't think Wyden
showed up.
With him, but I think there was one more, and I can't remember who it was.
So he was much more on his own this time, as this is a much more, we're into campaign season. He was much more on his own talking about this time. And of course, there's theatrics in this. I mean, this is an 11-hour speech that sort of goes on and on and on and on and on. And to Rand Paul's credit, this is not a situation where we saw with Ted Cruz reading The Cat in the Hat and whatever. Rand Paul had a lot to say about this stuff and went on and on and on. But as we got to the end, he sort of, he sort of noted how long he'd been there, and been there mostly by himself.
Thank you for staying and not throwing things. We'll try not to do this, but every couple of years or so.
Not throwing things.
Not throwing things. Again, I mean, this is, a man standing alone in a giant empty room. Which is why you didn't hear any laughter after that amazing joke that he just made. Not throwing anything. Well, the thing is, if they had a Patriot Act for comedy, I don't think he would support that either. So we just do the last clip of this was just he talking about sort of how he wrapped it up.
My voice is rapidly leaving. My bedtime is long since past.
There he goes.
So there he is. That's it. 11 hours on the NSA.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, folks, this is an issue that we don't hear talked about enough on the mainstream political level. Rand Paul's doing it. He's the only guy really doing it as hard as he's doing it. We don't even know if it's a political liability or not, but it's something that really helps to define a debate in this country that is just not being had by anybody else but him, really. Anyway, this is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. We will be back with some guests, and we'll talk more about all this stuff coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Robots might build cars, but it takes human hands to keep them running.
Silicon Valley's Santa Clara County is often portrayed as a role model for the rest of the country. The county has some of the highest salaries and most expensive real estate in America, thanks in large part to the phenomenal success of tech companies such as Google, Yahoo, Intel, Adobe, and of course Apple, the nation's wealthiest and most profitable company. But Santa Clara County also has a more unseemly distinction. I'm standing near downtown San Jose, inside what is by some accounts the largest homeless encampment in America. The Jungle, as it's known, occupies a 65-acre stretch of creek where about 300 people live in makeshift structures. It's less of a homeless encampment than a full-blown shantytown.
This being the largest homeless encampment in the United States, and with us having Silicon Valley with Steve Jobs and all this cash, we're not supposed to have this kind of homeless problem. You know what I mean?
I done been shot with a pellet gun like 4 times, attacked with baseball bats, my house set on fire.
This is like hell on earth. I mean, this is like something you will not see. You have to see to believe, actually. It's like fourth world conditions.
Hi. Have you ever heard of a place called the Jungle?
Sorry?
A place called the Jungle. Have you heard of it?
We're not making enough money really for conventional homes or housing, and we make too much money for subsidized homes. So we're kind of, floating between the oil and the water.
We told the landlady here if it would be possible to continue staying here. She said, no, you got to go. I already rented it out. We went and loaded things into a storage facility, and it's still there. And all the campgrounds and things that we saw were too far out of the city, like KOAs and that sort of thing. So what we decided to do was to move into the jungle. So that's what we did.
A few days ago, a woman named Lydia Hernandez was robbed inside of her tent. When she refused to hand over the money, the robbers slit her throat. When she still fought back, they bashed her head with an axe. She died a few hours later. Residents say that the police never come into the jungle, so they have to fend for themselves.
There's no law down there except our own, right? There's no law. So we could smoke dope all day in the open. The dope dealers ain't scared because, they're secure.
We go to the Fairmont Hotel and have a brunch or do a philanthropy. That's not going to cut it. We need billions of dollars to go into the inner cities and go into the jungle. Silicon Valley, the Bay Area is known for its innovation, its progressive thinking. It's one of the most progressive pockets in the United States, if not the world, and certainly one of the wealthiest. If we can't do it here, it won't happen anywhere. It's got to happen here.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania. Fracking pollutes our oceans. Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
I have not mentioned that yet so far. We are powering through the first half hour here. Listen, callers have called in about Rand Paul. We want to talk to you about Rand Paul and the NSA. We have lines open, 866-55-PRESS. Call in. We'll talk to you in a few minutes. We got to take another break here. But stay with us. This is the Bill Press Show. We're talking about Rand Paul, 866-55-PRESS. Call in. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? You gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this. And they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Hallelujah.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show. Its value is diminishing very quickly as I continue to guest host it. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed. I'm filling in for Bill Press today. Just to sort of catch everybody up, we had a pretty rip-roaring first half hour, and we talked a lot about Rand Paul and the NSA. He had an 11-hour he called it a filibuster. Wasn't really a filibuster. There's some argument about whether or not it was a filibuster. That's all some fun Senate procedural debating that is what I try to bring to the airwaves. We're going to have the next 2.5 hours will just be debate about whether or not he could delay cloture on, that's what we're going to do. Robert's Rules of Order Robert will be here. Robert's Rules of Order. But anyway, we've been talking at length about Rand Paul and the NSA. He did his 11-hour speech where he tried to stop the Patriot Act as much as he could, and we're going to talk about it. And we actually have a caller who's called in to talk a bit about this topic. We got Davis from Radford, Virginia. Davis, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good morning, Davis. How are you?
Oh, great, thanks. Looks like you're doing really good there. Congratulations on your anniversary.
Oh, thanks, man.
And what I want to say is the libertarians, they are pushing this paranoia on any kind of government. They don't want the government involved with anything whatsoever. For me, it's just an idea they have there to get rid of all progressive movements or progressive programs so that we can get more tax cuts for the wealthy. And as far as the NSA is concerned, well, we can't have them getting too nosy, but at the same time, we have to know what's going on. And what I think is, if the President Bush would have paid attention to his daily memos, he would have noticed in the last 2 days he'd been warned about a suspected attack on the trades building by commercial aircraft.
Yeah. I mean, yes, obviously that's sort of the impetus that sort of led to what we talked about, what we're dealing with here. But, what Davis is talking about is interesting. And thanks for calling in, Davis. What's interesting about this is he's sort of laying out a very sort of mainline Democratic response to this, which what I thought was really interesting about what he said was this idea that Rand Paul's a sheep's and wolf in sheep's clothing, kind of, right? That tying his interest in taking the NSA down to sort of general libertarian policies that are designed, what they want is a much smaller government, getting rid of a lot of social programs, getting a lot of things like that, which is sort of why Rand Paul has a problem and what libertarians almost always do, because every voter, regardless of kind of their political stripe, they want the government to do things for them. Right. And so when the libertarians get out there, it ends up becoming a problem for them, because once you get sort of past talking about maybe weakening pot legalization or the idea of taking down a surveillance state, then comes the let's end all foreign aid to countries that you like, let's get rid of welfare programs, and then it ends up becoming a problem for them. So it's interesting that Davis tied that together. So far, with Rand Paul, he's a kind of an interesting character just because he's more of a mainstream Republican in a lot of ways. Like, he doesn't sort of carry the libertarian water the same way his father did in that way. But I think Davis's point is spot on that Rand Paul wants a much smaller government than, say, Hillary Clinton would want.
Yeah. And by the way, we're on Twitter at BP Show. We got a couple of comments on Rand Paul.
What do we got?
Phil says, Rand Paul, of course, is not a real libertarian. He votes with the GOP on decidedly non-libertarian things like abortion. And then Jessica says, my thoughts on Rand Paul, even a stopped clock is right twice. Which is fair, but it's also, we have to actually stop and point out that Rand Paul is doing the right thing here. Someone's got to address this. Where are the Democrats on this, right? And I know I'm speaking to our audience here on the Bill Press Show, but where are our people?
Well, what I have to say about this is that, this response from your callers and your fine audience here does not bode well for Rand Paul's hopes of crossover votes.
No.
And that's been a thing. I mean, early on, there was some thought that maybe he'd be able to do that with some, but, as the campaign has begun and has gone on, I think he's found himself more worried about trying to get voters in Iowa and things like that, Republican caucus goers, than maybe trying to stick to some of that libertarian principles that make it easier for him to cross over.
The last time that we did this with Rand Paul was the drone stuff. He had that big talk about the drones, and we had to stop and give him credit for that too. He's spoken out about legalization of marijuana, the drone stuff, the Patriot Act now. So there are a couple things he's absolutely right on. Is it enough for our people, progressives, to vote for him for president? No.
No. I mean, this is a realm of a realm of politics that's very interesting, because Rand Paul also talks about criminal justice reform. I mean, yes, there's a lot of things, but I don't mean to necessarily turn it into a referendum on Rand Paul. I do think that your point is well taken about the fact that this NSA conversation is right now like a one-man conversation. This is not something that we have a lot of other people talking about. And that is sort of surprising, given especially sort of, I think, what President Obama's rhetoric was on the campaign trail back in 2008, which was, I think there's an expectation of a lot of changes to the way the war on terror worked that maybe have not shown up. Yeah. All right, we have another caller to talk about this. We have Cindy from Euclid, Ohio. Cindy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Where is Euclid in Ohio?
It's right next to Cleveland. It's a suburb of Cleveland.
Okay.
Hey, the Cavaliers won last night.
Yeah.
You got LeBron back.
Yeah, I haven't heard what happened with the Indians yet, though.
Oh, yeah, I'll have to find out for you.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think Sports Illustrated put the hoodoo on us.
Good point.
Cindy, what do you got to say? Tell us about this morning.
As far as Rand Paul is concerned, there's an old saying, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. I think that the data mining that they're doing, the wide net casting, is ridiculous. They should only begin data mining when there's a warrant issue. And, that's kind of the tradition. It makes a lot of sense. There's just too much room for abuse and political hounding and so forth if you do what they're doing and continue to do so.
Do you wish that maybe the politicians that you support more often would be talking about this more?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's something even Judge Bork, as much as I liked listening to him being slowly roasted by Barbara Jordan, when he was vetted, said that monopolies and privacy will be key issues, and they are only now just really coming up and heating up.
No. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Cindy. So we have a lot of blind squirrels today. We've got or stop clocks.
Stop clocks.
By the way, I think blind squirrel
Blind
is.
pig. Is it a blind pig?
I think a blind squirrel
heard of
finds a nut every now and then.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think is. I actually prefer that to that stop clock thing. Blind squirrel finds a nut. That's pretty good.
That's a pretty good one.
That's pretty good.
I like that. By the way, Cindy, the Indians won last night. They beat the White Sox 4-3.
So the hoodoo is lifted.
Yeah, apparently.
But yeah, I mean, listen. So now we're talking about Bork. I mean, we've got this is
It was
such
a Bork reference.
It's an interesting.
We got a Bork reference.
We've got somebody referring to Robert Bork to talk about that. This is a very interesting topic. This is just really weird how politics is working on this particular issue. We also now calling in now. We have Rose from Ligonier, Indiana. Am I saying that right, Rose?
Yeah, very good.
Now, where is Ligonier in Indiana?
We are just about 40 miles west of Fort Wayne.
Okay. All right. That sounds nice.
Sure.
So what do you have to talk about this morning, Rose?
Well, one of the things that gets me is the Supreme Court ruled this unconstitutional and didn't do anything about it and said, well, we're not going to do anything because it's up with the Congress. Well, we haven't seen much out of Congress, and if it's unconstitutional, then why is it even continuing?
So, Rose, why do you think it is that a lot of these politicians that maybe you support are not talking about this issue more?
Well, I think a lot of it is because of the corruption we have with our financing of our campaigns. They're afraid in other ways, too, that if they don't support this and something happens, they're going to be in the hot seat. So I kind of think they're damned if they do and damned if they don't in a lot of ways they think.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Rose. So there we have the argument that the political sort of wins are still at the backs of politicians who stand with the sort of global war on terror the way it's been run versus changing it. I think that point has some merit to it. I do think we're going to see some more. I mean, look, the polling and this has changed. Things have been shifting on this issue, but I think that point has some relevance to it.
It does. I don't think it's having its moment.
No.
but I do think that's true. There is a lot has changed.
Yeah.
A lot has changed.
And politicians are, wary of doing things that are, risky.
Yeah.
Generally.
Absolutely. No, that's a good point because I found myself wondering why there wasn't, or hasn't been sort of an avalanche of politicians coming out against, NSA spying, Patriot Act, things like that. But yeah, I guess it is still at least a little risky for them.
And some of the early polling on the issue showed the public sort of not being that upset about this. The classic thing people talk about is like, well, my Facebook, and my Google search and everything. And I don't know that. I think the more people learn about this, the less they like it.
Yeah.
That's sort of my sense from just the reporting that I've done.
Yeah.
We are taking a break.
Yeah, let's take a quick
break. All right, let's take a quick break. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. Thanks a lot, callers. I think there's a pretty good conversation. That was really interesting to talk about a very important topic. This is the Bill Press Show. We'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to talk more with a lot of great guests about more news from this week.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar. much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are 3 incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show. I am Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed, filling in for Bill while he's in Cuba, negotiating, I assume, more diplomatic deals with the country down there, or with at least with the rum stores. This is really exciting. I'm really excited about this. We have Susan Page joining us for the next few minutes. Just a great reporter. She does a great job and she fills in for Diane Rehm. She has a great TV show now. Just a great writer. It's just awesome to be able to talk to her and to be able to do a radio show where she's on it. So, Susan, are you with us?
Man, I can't possibly be that good. I should hang up now.
No, this is very cool. I'm really excited about this. I want to ask you really quick before I have some questions for you about Susan Rice, your interview with her. But before we do that, what is your take on this? What they're calling it this filibuster that Rand Paul did? Do you think that this is like politically smart for him? I mean, sort of where does this fall into things for you?
I do. He's standing up. He's doing. I mean, it's not technically a filibuster, but it's what people think of when they think of a filibuster, which is that you stand up there and just talk endlessly. It's not one of those kind of silent things that members of the Senate can sometimes do. I think it makes him look kind of valiant. And you know what? He's standing up on an issue he's been very identified with. So I think it's all good. What do you think?
We had a lot of callers call in, and the audience of the Bill Press Show was extremely skeptical of Rand Paul and what he was doing, but they did sort of say that they liked the idea of what he was talking about and what he was trying to discuss, but it was more of the variety of a broken clock is right twice a day.
Well, that is true. A broken clock is right twice a day. But, you know, whatever you think of Rand Paul, and it's possible that the Bill Press Show audience is not his target demographic when it comes to running for office.
That may be right.
But he has been very consistent in talking about concerns about the Patriot Act, concerns about big government, and I think it's very. I like the theater of standing up and holding up the Senate. Standing there in your tennis shoes, holding up the Senate and talking about something you believe in. So
sure.
I would praise any senator who does that. I guess maybe there'd be some exceptions.
All right. Well, listen. We don't have you for too much time. Let's move into your interview you did for your television show Capital Download with Susan Rice this week. Obviously, you talked a lot about ISIS. You talked about the fall of Ramadi in Iraq. A sort of big moment for ISIS or IS or ISIL against sort of U.S. interests. Susan Rice told you that we need to get ready for a long slog against ISIS. And this phrase stood out to me because, you know, we've heard this kind of thing before, especially about, you know, U.S. military interests in Iraq. I wonder if you can help us understand, like, when a slog becomes a quagmire and if we're sort of in that gray area between those two things.
You know, Evan, I completely agree. When I heard her say it's going to be a long slog, and Americans should understand that, the echo for me was Vietnam. You're not old enough, I'm sure, to remember that, but I think that a long slog is something that was said about Vietnam. It certainly became that and a quagmire and more, and I think that's alarming to Americans. I mean, no question that people see ISIS as this incredible and growing threat, and their success. You know, the White House had been arguing that ISIS had been pushed back on its heels. The capture of Ramadi just a couple days ago, I think, has made it clear that that's not the case, at least at the moment, and that this is going to be a battle that's going to take a long time, and that will involve us aligning ourselves, offering support for these Shiite militias that are aligned with Iran, which is something else she talked about.
Do you feel like this is registering that much with the broader electorate? I know that when you go to Republican events and their candidate cattle calls, ISIS is a main topic of conversation. There's a lot of fear about ISIS, literally coming to America and having causing trouble here. But I wonder if you feel like in the broader electorate, I mean, we have this big new sort of enemy we're dealing with. It doesn't seem to be going super well. Do you feel like it's top of mind in the conversation?
You know, I think as a general rule, Americans are most concerned about the economy, what's happening in their own lives. The thing that might make this have more saliency for voters in this country would be if we have more of these ISIS-inspired attacks, as we saw just outside Dallas a week or 10 days ago. Now, in that case, it was only the two attackers who were ISIL sympathizers who were killed, but these kind of random terror attacks in U.S. cities, I think, would be something that would really grab people's attention. But as you know, usually it's domestic issues that prevail.
Right. I mean, I think that's probably right. In general, do you feel like the Obama administration feels comfortable with what they're doing on ISIS, or are they, freaking out?
I think there was a feeling that there had been some success in pushing back ISIS in both Syria and in Iraq, and a strategy of depending on the Iraqi military to train the Iraqi military and have them stand up against ISIS. And there was success. Remember, we captured Tikrit.
Yeah.
But this is a big defeat, and this is a big symbolic city. Americans know Ramadi and the Anbar province where it's located because so many American soldiers died there during the Iraq War. And I think that makes it even more anguishing when you see what's happening there. You see ISIS taking it over, raising those black flags, setting up Sharia courts, and going door to door and killing people who have stood up for the Iraq government. I mean, this is really heart-wrenching stuff.
Right. Well, I think this is going to be a lot more conversations about this. If this slog continues, I think it'll become a much more big part of the election as we go on. Susan Page, thanks so much for being on the air. I'll, be watching your show and listening, and everybody else should too. We'll put links up on the BP Show Twitter feed, and thanks so much for your time.
Hey, thanks, Evan.
All right, take it easy. This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro filling in. We got more great guests like Susan Page coming up. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow, CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. That was the first hour, folks. We have 2 more to go. I think they're going to be great. We have a lot of great guests coming up. We're going to talk more about politics on the domestic side coming up. You need to follow along with us here at youtube.com/TalkerTV, Twitter at BP Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. This is the Bill Press Show. We'll be back next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block
And I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
On your TV and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hour 2, folks. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill Press. It's 7:06 on the East Coast. We are into another 3-hour edition of the Bill Press Show. Bill is gone to an undisclosed location that is Cuba. I'm filling in for Bill, having a great time as always doing it. We are going to go through, we talked a lot about the NSA last hour. We're going to talk about some domestic issues this hour, some other things that are going on. I'm the White House reporter at BuzzFeed. We cover everything at BuzzFeed. We're going to try to cover everything here on the show, too. I just want to once again thank everybody here at the show who helps me out. We got Peter. It's here again for another hour. We got Elisa. She's doing
good morning.
She's making sure I hit brakes and things, which I'm doing better.
You're doing a phenomenal job.
I make be better than I usually do.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Every time somebody listens, so listen, when someone listens to me host this show, my mom always says, I don't know what this brake thing is, but you constantly talk about how bad you are at brakes. No one can tell because obviously it breaks. It's not like there's a light that goes off on their computer or on their radio. It's like this guy's messing it up, right? But for some reason I have to let everyone know whatever stumble I may have, because this is the way I am when I host a radio, folks. I want people to see what it's like. I'm taking from the David Letterman model of the sort of un-radio show.
Yeah,
I'm going to show you all the seams. We're going to bring out people from the back. We're going to talk about whatever it is. I'm going to throw something off the roof of the building, whatever.
And we have Larry Bud Melman later on in the show, which is weird. But,
How did we get him? Jamie Benson screening calls. And we have Cyprian doing all the video stuff, so you can see me on Talker TV, TAWKER TV. That's on YouTube.com/Talker TV. We have a great couple guests coming up. We got Wes Lowery from the Washington Post. We got Julian Hattem coming in from the Hill. But we're going to talk about some other stuff first. Let's do the but first.
This
is a new thing.
You're nailing that part.
But first, I'm supposed to do.
Yesterday, I did a story about how Washington, D.C. is the fittest city in the nation.
Which Peter and I both completely embody.
Total health nut.
That's right.
Total health
nut. Hashtag, what is it, dad bod, which I hate. I said dad bod on the...
Don't you take this away from me.
Okay.
But they're never going to let us have this again, Evan.
You do know that it's not supposed to be for actual dads. It's supposed to be for people No.
I'm an actual dad with an actual dad bod. I'm okay with the dad bod phenomenon. However, that's not just the fittest city in the country. A new study takes a look at where people have affairs, where they cheat on their spouses. Ashley Madison says that they have the most people registered in D.C. Ashley Madison is a website. Right, shock.
What?
Yeah, surprise.
Oh, my.
I'm shocker.
Amazing.
Ashley Madison is a website that facilitates affairs.
Yeah.
You can go on and you have a spouse that's discreet or whatever. So they say more people registered to use the service in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else in the country. So there you go.
I am... For two things.
Are you shocked?
I'm shocked about two things. It's the number one place for affairs. What?
Yeah.
And also, it's a place where people go to the internet to find sex. What do you know? A bunch of kids from the nerd table have their own city Well, how will I facilitate my extramarital affair?
Yeah.
Beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop. I mean, come on.
And I'm still at work.
Can I say something about AskMeMadison.com?
Yeah,
I don't know if they're a sponsor or
not.
something. I don't think that site's a real thing. Like, I mean, I know it exists, but do you think people are actually going to this website? I mean, you have to register your name and whatever.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how that actually works in real life.
I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, this is like a political dream. Like, someone's going to hack it, and then it's going to be,
everything. Yeah,
right.
everything. You gotta
But
put it
still,
all
I mean, DC, of course, is number one for affairs. I mean, 'cause everyone's so hot here, apparently. Or, like, steeped in their own deep insecurities and, like, weird, like, vanity and fame that they're into. It's 7:10 a.m., folks.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture, they keep tracks on the price of pork belly, as you know. Did you know that we're in the middle of, speaking of the fittest city in the nation, we're in the middle of a record low for pork belly prices.
Is that why there's, like, bacon frozen yogurt?
Bacon everything. Bacon everything.
No wonder.
Wholesale bacon prices are at $4.12 a pound, which is 25% cheaper than it was a year ago. It never goes down like that. Last year it was super high. So we're in a bacon renaissance, if you will.
Bacon
where
bubble.
It's cheap. It's the bacon bubble. Yeah, there you go.
That's great. Listen, the thing about it is, it's all the bacon available has now gotten me craving. Like, I've become like a total snob with this now. I mean, dried and cured meats is my favorite thing to begin with.
Yeah.
But like now I'm a total snob now. Like, I almost bought myself a $400 class where I was going to learn how to carve Serrano ham.
Oh, nice.
Oh, really?
But you get like a knife, you get like a ham stand, they call it. You get and you get the ham.
You get a little ham stand with a little thing?
And you get a whole ham. I almost did that because like now I'm just like, there's so much bacon around. You want to like go to the, it's sort of like, it's like gateway drug, right? Like you kind of want to go, like there's always bacon everywhere.
You gotta
and
find
like,
that next kick.
Right. That's right. You're like, what is it? You got a $350 ham. Yeah.
You've heard of Airbnb. You've heard of VRBO. These are all places that you could find lodging that people put up that you can rent out for vacations. You don't have to stay in a hotel. There's a new website called budandbreakfast.com.
All right. Let me guess.
You want to guess?
It's you make a friend and you have breakfast with them?
Well, I went to the website. I'll give you a hint. The first 5 properties that I see here on the website are all in Colorado. These are all for people who want to travel and get high.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to stay at a property that is 420 friendly, where you can smoke weed at your residence where you're staying, these places are totally cool with it. So you could go on to budandbreakfast.com, find a place to stay, and they're totally okay if you get high on the property.
If I am the breakfast cereal distribution guy,
Yes.
regional manager for General Mills in Colorado,
Yeah.
I am calling people up immediately. My kids are going to Ivy League schools off this website. Right? Bud and breakfast.
Budandbreakfast.com.
Well, this is the whole thing with this pot economy. It really is just like the regular economy, but with pot added to it.
Yeah,
And every time
sure.
one of these things comes up, it becomes like a big deal. They're like, oh my God, it's like Uber for weed. It's like pizza delivery for weed. Like, yeah, it's just everything for weed.
Yeah.
It's like whatever you like
Everything-
to have.
Exactly.
They have it for weed now because they like weed. Anyway, all right. So bacon, weed, affairs, fittest city in the country. Run it down. That's our rundown from this morning. A perfect segue into talking to Wes Lowery of the Washington Post, a wonderful reporter who I've known for a little while, and is just a really cool guy to hang out with, and also just a really great reporter. Wes, are you there with us?
I am here. What's going on, buddy?
Are you, now you're in Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Which is your hometown, right?
Currently in my child's bedroom.
No, come
hanging
on.
out.
That's funny.
I got a bunch of old high school textbooks and some clothes that don't quite fit me anymore. So I'm in a great place for a good time.
You know, you're supposed to turn those textbooks in.
Correct. I'm pretty sure this copy of To Kill a Mockingbird does not belong to me. Rather, it is the property of Shaker Heights High School.
There is some kid at Shaker Heights High School right now who is having to read off some crappy photocopy and that Lowry.
Yeah, we never got this back from that Lowry.
We're down
kid.
one of them. I don't know.
There's there's an administrator sitting in a book room furious with me. We should have never given him his diploma. What is this? like, yeah, no, I'm in trouble as I look at this bookcase.
Well, and you just said this on national radio. I think
they're coming after you now.
The book police are coming to get these books. Well, this is very nice of you to call us from your vacation and from your family home in Cleveland. I want to talk to you a bit about the things you've been writing about, because we've been writing about sort of some of the same stuff, but you have been doing an interesting job at it from the sort of ground level. And I want to talk about something that it was a story that happened. It got some play, but I think sort of got pushed under by a lot of other things that are happening, mostly on the campaign trail. This thing that the president did with military equipment for police. This was something that, of course, had emerged after Ferguson. The images of sort of riot-geared cops in heavily armored vehicles, shooting off tear gas at protesters. Of course, something you're very acquainted with on a personal level. Am I right in saying that what the Obama administration did, and if you could summarize it quickly, that'd be great too, was more than most of the advocates expected we would get from the Obama administration on this particular issue?
Yes, I certainly believe that to be true. Because, here's the thing. This is hard. Any of these, so-called demilitarization bills or actions, the ideas of taking potentially weaponry or equipment away from police officers is very politically fraught. No one quite expected the Obama administration to do this, either via executive action or to just, no one quite expected that. There was a big question of would Congress maybe try to pass something, but it was pretty understood that would probably be dead on arrival because the police unions oppose these types of things. Mm-hmm. And so this was something that, while there are some qualms with some of the activists of exactly, and some questions still of what exactly this means, and, some pushback on how exactly it was reported versus what is really going to mean, this was a step further than most people, at least most people I'm talking to, what they expected. They weren't necessarily expecting this step from the president.
Yeah, I mean, they had signaled right along. I mean, we'd heard, Charles Ramsey, the head of his police task force, had gotten into a kind of a screaming match with mayors at a mayor's conference, explaining why they thought they needed this stuff. So, do you have any sense? I mean, I don't, obviously I'm a White House reporter, and you're not. I should be asking myself this, but do you have any sense of why the administration went this way in this direction?
Well, one of the things I think is really interesting here, and this is not quite completely reported out on this specific issue, but my impression of the Obama administration on most of these issues more broadly, and some of the steps that what the president is taking, what Attorney General Holder is taking while he was Attorney General, now Attorney General Lynch, is that it seems very clear. And what we always have to remember on this is that we've got a president, and we've now had two attorney generals who deeply personally care about these issues. That these are the types of things that they were teaching about in classes when they were professors, and the things they were working on when they were attorneys. There is a sense here that this is the types of things that the president wants to be his legacy, and Holder wanted to be his legacy, and now Lynch might want to be her legacy 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Many of them revolve around these types of issues of race and justice and the potential for policing reform. Mm-hmm. And so what we're seeing both in rhetoric, how the president is now speaking on some of these issues, certainly how Attorney General Holder was speaking, and some of the steps that Loretta Lynch is even taking already, is some of them, frankly, are not the most politically expedient things, or even things that you would advise a politician who ever had to be reelected again to do. However, President Obama has entered what is the relative lame duck period of his presidency anyway. Eric Holder was on the way out. Loretta Lynch knows she's only got basically a 2-year mandate. And so they're taking some steps here that I think, they're gauging that, we might get some blowback in the short term, but the long term, people are going to look back at this post-Ferguson period of time and say, what did they do? And so if we can do it, if we can get it through, let's go ahead and do some of this stuff let history be the judge for some of it.
Yeah, it strikes me this is an area where the presidential election coming up is especially important because, Obama's DOJ has been sort of quietly extremely activist in ways that progressives really like. And, we saw with Bush's DOJ versus Obama's that, it was activist in a very different way. Do you get the sense that this will be something that people will be expecting to hear about in the general election campaign? I mean, maybe voting on the general election campaign?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's extremely important. You know, I remember maybe it was a month or two ago working on a piece where I was talking to a lot of kind of civil rights groups and civil rights leaders, people who work around these issues. And that was one of the things they were talking about. And frankly, one of the reasons they're trying to engage a lot with the Republican candidates is because they care very much who the next attorney general is going to be. Because if you're the president of the NAACP, if you're the president of the Urban League, or if you're Al Sharpton, if you're someone who's been around these issues for a long time, for you, you've never been happier than during the Eric Holder years. They're coming in and investigating police departments. They're cracking down on racial profiling incidents, and these are the types of things that even the president's report on 21st century policing, the task force, their report was basically a wish list of things that civil rights groups have wanted since the 80s. Mm-hmm. More community policing and less racial profiling, and they could have written that report 2 decades ago if the civil rights groups had gotten to do it. And so for them, they're extremely, extremely focused on what is going to be, even if it's not Hillary Clinton, even if it's a Republican candidate, this idea of, can we impart the urgency and the importance, and can we get some of these Republicans on the record saying, yes, we're going to have my attorney general will continue to investigate police departments. We'll continue to work on those issues. And if they can make that promise during the campaign, well, maybe it'll come true.
Right. Well, there's a certain amount of Republicans who are talking about that, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense also, we have about a minute and a half, I guess, but just to sort of, these changes that the president has put into place with the police militarization thing, this focus from Lynch and from Holder on these issues, do you think that there is going to be a tangible impact on this central issue of relations among police and community members in certain communities across the country? Is this something that we might see change in the short term?
Well, what I think, and here's the thing, the president's kind of demilitarization acts, like I said, there are some caveats. The first is that, it's been, we all kind of use the word ban in our reporting, but there are still questions. A lot of these police departments could still potentially use local grants to go get these same things.
Yeah.
And so there's a question of how much of this equipment will actually literally be taken off the streets. And there's another question of, if you've already accumulated it from the feds, do you have to get it back? And that kind of remains a lingering question a little bit as well. But I do think that since we're having this moment right now, we've been talking about this, I do think if you're a police chief of a small town in Wisconsin and Massachusetts and Ferguson, Missouri, you're now thinking twice before you're going to take a local grant to get bayonets. You're now thinking twice about, all right, how many MRAPs do we really need? And so I do think that is going to, that having a little daylight on these issues, it's going to make some police chiefs and some police officials a little more cognizant of, like, hey, someone might records request this stuff, and I'm going to have to explain why we've got, horses and cannons.
Right. Well, that's a big change. Well, listen, thanks, Wes, for coming on. It's always great to talk to you.
Anytime, buddy.
This is Obama legacy stuff. This is stuff that 10 years from now we could be discussing what impact the president had on this particular issue in this country, and some of the things that his people have been saying could really mean something. So keep an eye on it. This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill. We're coming back for another half hour, and then more time after that.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
extend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill. It's great to be back. Always a fun thing to do. We've had a really good 90 minutes of radio so far, and we're going to have a good 90 minutes more. I was saying on the way out, keep an eye on this criminal justice stuff. This is going to be part of Obama's sort of quieter legacy. I think we'll have a lot to do with it. And Wes Lowery, the reporter from the Washington Post we just had on, you should really follow him. Also follow the Bill Press Show too, which is at BP Show. Tweet us. Talk to us about what you think what you're thinking about and what you're listening to as you hear the show. Again, I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. We're going to come back for another half hour and then another hour after that. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. If I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is indeed The Bill Press Show. I am not Bill Press. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed News, and I'm filling in for Bill once again. Always a fun time. I drag myself in here in the early morning. I'm always completely terrified of how early it is. I don't understand what's happening. The world doesn't make any sense. And then I get here and it's super fun because everybody here is great, and the callers are great, and the audience is great. The guests are great. So we're having another great time, and I think it's going very well, and it's going to keep going well. With us in the studio, we have Julian Hattem. Hattem from The Hill, who writes a lot about like technology and politics and sort of where it all crosses over. And this has been a big couple weeks for that. We talk about the NSA things and talking about sort of a lot of classified stuff that's going on and non-national security thing that's happening. And I was hoping to talk to you. We talked a lot about Rand Paul earlier. We'll talk with you a little bit about that. But I want to just sort of jump in and talk about this weird thing, this giant release of bin Laden seized materials that we got from the State Department or the CIA?
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
Okay, so the intelligence community put them out. Give us sort of an overview of what was in these documents and what kind of things we learned about bin Laden from them.
Sure. So this was like this pretty massive trove that they released yesterday of hundreds of letters that bin Laden sent to and back and forth from his family members, based half banal things, just like, hey guys, hope you're doing okay. I miss you. Tell brother Ahmed that I hope his problem works out. But
this is communication. This is like emails or
emails, messages. They picked it up from like thumb drives and like floppy disks and like electronic communications like that.
Hotmail, Gmail. Do we know?
Yeah, Yahoo perhaps.
Yeah, probably Yahoo. Yahoo News, Yahoo email, of course.
But there's also this like very interesting collection of like English language books, including like weird truther and conspiracy theory stuff. There's like some weird think tank documents and even a game guide for this weird Delta Force video game stuff.
That is just crazy ironic that he had the Delta Force, Peter Ogburn, by the way, still with us, that he had the Delta Force video game.
Insane.
Right?
Totally insane.
Because like now I think that the versions of that game have like you can do the Abbottabad raid yourself.
You can. Yeah, on these games you could have that, like the bin Laden raid. Let me ask you a question about maybe a more delicate issue. What was his porn stash?
So this was actually a question because of
course it was.
Initially, after in May of 2011, after this first happened, they found all this porn and they said there was a lot of porn, but apparently the porn remains classified. So we don't know exactly what that porn was, but apparently there was pornography.
Oh, nice.
So in like 50 years, this is going to be somebody's doctoral thesis, the pornography of Osama bin Laden when it's released finally.
Yeah.
It'll be like a Nixon tape.
Yeah. We'll get to see. Just like the Nixon tape.
Just like the Nixon tape. What do you make of this truther thing, man? Like, so he had this. Like, tell us a little bit more if you know, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but tell us a little bit more about the truther documents that he had or truther texts that he had, and what you make of that, him having that material in his possession.
So there was a couple of like conspiracy theory things. There's like Illuminati stuff. There's a couple of truther books. I don't remember the name offhand because I'm not a huge truther fan. But I think I make of it personally. I think that he. Like, in the years after 9/11, he was very interested in understanding the American mentality and the American mindset and what that meant. And so there's also, the 9/11 Commission report and a lot of, like, stuff from the Brookings Institution and, like, other think tanky stuff. And I think as a part of that, he was like, okay, so, what are these, like, truther documents and what are, what's this conspiracy theory stuff going on? And I think, he's also, I think it's fair to say he's kind of a crazy guy, so it's not necessarily.
I think you can go that far.
Yeah. It's not like too much of a stretch.
Whoa.
Allegedly, pretty.
We don't know the man.
But what's interesting about this? Obviously, it's quite fascinating to find out about the sort of details and talk about the pornography and all that sort of stuff like that. But there was a lot of material about the United States. This guy wanted to understand the United States. That just seems like a big sort of through line to all this documents. He really wanted to read up on American history and American policy, as you mentioned. The 9/11 Commission report, I think you would get that. This is sort of like your standard Washington, like you're going to scan the index for your name kind of thing. You know what I mean?
No, but he had like some Bob Woodward books and you know like committee testimony from Senate, whatever stuff. So
yeah, but the ongoing sort of details, the weedsy details of American politics and American policy surrounding terrorism, what he had perpetrated, was fascinating to him, I guess. It's interesting to see how plugged in he wanted to be, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think it's also kind of worth noting that this is not happening in a vacuum, this release of these documents, right? The intelligence community released these, coincidentally, they say, just after this kind of backlash over this Seymour Hersh article about criticizing the Obama narrative about the bin Laden raid, saying that actually it was half Pakistan and there wasn't really any danger.
Also said that there wasn't any good material in the
said there wasn't any good material.
Right?
Yeah, so this has been a narrative of the Obama administration for a while, is that bin Laden has remained kind of in command and control of Al Qaeda, even from this little bunker base in Abbottabad, Pakistan. But also that he's kind of a crazy and kind of loopy and would have Illuminati stuff. So what they release very conforms very well to that narrative that they have been crafting for a while now.
Right. And I encourage everybody listening to go and read about this stuff. You have a story about it? Any stories about it?
Yeah, a couple of stuff. There's a couple of things. TheHill.com.
Yeah, go to thehill.com, find out about this personal stash of bin Laden's reading material. I think you'll find it really fascinating, and eventually when the porn comes out, Peter will be writing about that
Yes,
at length
I'll be all over that.
on his website, and we'll link up to that when that comes down.
Yes, absolutely.
So that covers that, which is really fascinating. And we did talk at length about Rand Paul. We had talked about the NSA thing. But one of the things that's happening is, so we're a day away from what the Obama administration says will be shutting down. Excuse me. I'm going to hit the cough button.
So you got to stop hitting the cough button and make you cough.
That's what it is. That's that old car guys joke that they used to do. I know. Which I love. One of my favorite jokes. But so Friday is a big deal in this because it's going to mean the end of the bulk data collection. Is that what this is?
That's the beginning of the end. So the real end is the end of the month, June 1. But this is, there's kind of a legal technical process, and so they sent a memo around yesterday to Congress saying, if you don't do anything by Friday, we're going to have to start putting the gears in motion, and then kind of we cross the Rubicon, at least briefly, we start the process of winding down. And, that's meaningful because it looks like there won't be anything happening in Congress. Congress has to do something by June 1 or else these programs expire, but they're out of town next week, so really they have to do something by Friday, and it looks like they won't, so... the NSA and also the FBI, which also uses a lot of these legal authorities, looks like there's going to start kind of beginning to wind some of these programs down, which they say, is a problem at least temporarily. Maybe there are kind of some other alternative powers they can use, but after a while there could be blind spots. Is what they say. Depends on who you ask about how big those blind spots are. Of course.
We getting the sense? Are you? This is obviously happening, but are you getting the sense that the White House is pushing really hard on Congress to keep these things going, or they just kind of would rather than maybe they expire?
I think the White House is actually in a really interesting position here because, on the one hand, they really want Mitch McConnell to back off his kind of very staunch position of there should be no change, no reforms. The Attorney General has come out and said there should be reforms. The Director of National Intelligence has said there should be reforms. They want reforms. But at the same time, they also need Mitch McConnell for trade stuff, who's been a big ally of theirs and has really kind of roped them together.
Right.
So there's this kind of tension there. And, I think they also, there have been a couple of briefings. They brought in the head of the NSA and a couple other folks, I think a week ago, to kind of talk about people and explain what's going on here. So I think there's been certainly some pressure, but it's also, the main opposition here are Republicans, and the White House has little sway on Capitol Hill kind of period, and especially with Republicans.
Sure. But is the intelligence community should have lighting their hair on fire and saying that we're this is a big security problem if these things expire? Has there been a lot of that?
They've been starting to, certainly. They've been saying that these are tools that one of the tools we rely on in our toolbox to protect America, to connect possible terrorist networks, et cetera, et cetera. And so they've been up there. They've been talking to people, and they've been kind of telling them, this is a problem. Don't let this expire. I think that the concern is that Mitch McConnell and a lot of these other hawks interpret that as we cannot change the program, and I think the Obama administration wants that to be we cannot allow it to end entirely. And so they wanted to reform it but keep it going as opposed to keep it going without reforms. And I think the problem is between those two, there might be actually nothing. The programs might expire entirely.
But your sense from your reporting is that this is not going to be something that Congress gets accomplished, right?
The time is running out. And one of the things is the weird congressional calendar that's going on.
Come on.
Yeah, never. I've got to have a job. I've got to write something. There's always something.
There's always the bin Laden trope.
Yeah, there's always the bin Laden trope.
Well, so what is next for this whole thing? We talked a bit about how Rand Paul is bringing this into the presidential debate a bit. What is next for this whole sort of line of conversation? Do you feel like we're going to be entering into a summer where we really talk about this stuff a lot, or is this just going to sort of come and go back in the background, sort of what happened recently?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it kind of depends on the political situation. Rand Paul has made a lot of hay about this. If nothing happens in Congress, I think that will... he'll use that to his advantage. All through the filibuster last night or yesterday, his campaign account was tweeting, stand with Rand, et cetera, et cetera. So I think he'll make this kind of a big deal. There are other couple of kind of court cases that are also working their way through the system. Depending on what Congress does, those might be kind of interesting. There was this thing a couple weeks ago in the Second Circuit said that the NSA program was illegal. There were kind of 2 other similar cases. They may or may not rule depending on what Congress does. But if Congress keeps the program unchanged, there's a lot of indication that this could go up to the Supreme Court, which, that would be a big issue. But I think for the time being, I think there's this little hump here, there's this cliff, and Congress will either deal with it or not, and then either forget about it or not. And then I think there'll be kind of the conversation will slack off, I think, certainly at least for the time being, and then kind of get back maybe in a political context or something like that.
So sort of regardless of whether it becomes a public thing, there's a lot of movement on this stuff in all sorts of ways.
These things kind of come back into the public consciousness every couple of years when Snowden happens or when there's some big deadline. Right. And there is another big deadline in 2017, so if anyone's ready already.
2017, folks, get ready.
Get ready.
Julian Hattem from The Hill. We're talking about the NSA. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, and we will be back after another break. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show. I am Evan McMorris Santoro. In the studio still with Julian Hattem from The Hill, Peter Ogburn from the Bill Press Show.
Yo.
I don't know how we got him, but he came in. It's a pretty amazing
What a
get.
coup.
So listen, last segment we talked a lot about sort of like larger security questions, big security questions about the whole country. But this week has also had a lot of discussions about very small, like literally in the backyard of the Capitol, security questions. The first thing that we should talk about is if folks recall this gyrocopter incident where a Florida former mailman, flew a tiny light aircraft across Washington and onto the Capitol lawn, carrying, I believe, was something like 5,000 letters or something about campaign finance reform. He got indicted by a federal grand jury. He got indicted by a federal grand jury for possibly 9.5 years in prison for, among other things, impersonating a mailman because he had postal logos on his craft. So we had an interesting conversation about this because, on the other hand, so we have the Capitol Police felt really good about how they handled this gyrocopter situation, which really did terrify a lot of Hill staffers. We got some audio on that. This is the Capitol Police Chief, Elisa?
I think the officers acted properly, heroically, swiftly, and efficiently.
That's Chief Kim Dine.
Okay, so we've got properly, heroically acting about the gyrocopter. Now, Julian, I'm not sure how often you are down on the Hill, if that's where you are every day.
Pretty often, yeah.
Were you there for gyrocopter
I was
day?
there. People were scared. There was,
really
everything
out, right?
was locked. There was a lot of emails going back and forth. People were looking out the window because you could see it from the top of the Capitol. He was down on the west lawn, I guess. And people, there was this sense of, oh God, what is this happening? And it's important to remember this is also, a year or two, a couple months after, there was this crazy woman, or this woman who had this weird driving around the incident and eventually was shot by Capitol Police officers. And there's also the shooting. So there's people were kind of scared about what's going on. I think that stuff strikes a nerve on Capitol Hill. People are scared.
But there was people were calling for this thing to be blown out of the sky, right?
Yeah. This was.
It's remarkable that he wasn't. It's amazing that he was not blown out of the sky.
Well,
that he actually landed on the Capitol building.
I mean, part of the context here is he gave, it was like a 5,000 word piece in the St. Petersburg Times the day before, saying this guy's going to fly to the Capitol, and
I guess the
one
cops
of his friends
knew,
called
right?
the cops and was like, by the way, don't shoot him down. But there was a lot of discussion about whether or not we should shoot, whether they should shoot this guy down. This fear factor inside the Capitol about the potential for this gyrocopter to be bad. But on the other hand, you have a different threat inside the Capitol. We're going to play the audio first, and then we'll talk about what it is.
We are now providing additional training on what to do when you have to go to the bathroom.
This is
these are grown adults.
I mean, as the father of young children,
we passed that a long time ago.
You could go in.
I got a 10-year-old and I got a 7-year-old. We covered that ground years ago.
You could sell content for this. Now, we are not talking about what you might think from that. We're talking about a series of incidents, right? Not just
multiple
one.
Police officers, multiple.
In which Capitol Police have left their loaded firearms in the public bathrooms in the Capitol, correct?
They go in, they take their pants off, they sit down, I think they take their gun, they put their gun on the side, and then they never pick it back up again.
One was found by a child,
kid.
I believe.
Yeah.
The kid found it. Oh my God.
That's terrifying.
So you go in there to the Capitol, and if people have gone to visit, and if you're a reporter there too, there is pretty intense security, as you'd imagine. There's mag detectors, and they search all your bags and stuff. Sometimes they go through your bag with a wand and everything. And it turns out that all you got to do is go to the bathroom, and there's this Capitol Police gun lying there. So this is a very interesting story about security in the Capitol. That we have the heroism of stopping the gyrocopter guy. He's going to go to prison for 9.5 years, and then we have the advanced bathroom training following a string of incidents in which loaded weapons have been left by Capitol Police in bathrooms. What do we make of this bathroom thing?
I mean, personally, it's terrifying, right? Because I've been in the bathroom, next to or alongside, cops. If there's, guns just, sitting around, I need to be more aware. I mean, I think it also, it speaks to, you're concerned about people using their weapons and, how this stuff I guess it's a lack of training or like a lack of mindfulness. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it kind of dumbfounds me. I'll be totally
It's like
honest.
leaving your coffee cup on top of your car when you leave in the morning, except
your coffee cup's a gun.
Very different.
Yes, exactly. Just like that.
Listen, this is the Bill Press Show. We have not left anything in the bathroom or on the table. This is the Bill. We're talking about everything on the Bill Press Show, and we have another hour coming up. Thanks again to Julian Hattem for coming in. Follow his stuff on the Hill. He's a great reporter. A lot of interesting things he's writing about. We'll be back for another hour. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill Press. Stay with us for another great hour of radio coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Home of the best bumper music money doesn't need to buy because it's publicly available.
That's right.
The Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro. We have just a couple seconds before we go back out for the end of this hour, and I just want to say something that people who are watching us on youtube.com/talkertv saw in the last segment with Julian Hattem, Peter Ogburn, and myself, is that this was a beard off. We had 3 beards.
I think that might have been the first time that we had 3 beards.
3 beards in the studio.
Yeah.
And I think that we killed it.
Yeah, I think so. The beard roundtable.
But who won?
We stroked them thinking about things.
At one point, sucked on the end of my glasses and listened intently while stroking my beard.
There's going to be more radio beard action coming up in the next hour on the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill Press from BuzzFeed News. I'm having a great time as always. Stay with us for one more hour.
Is the Bill Press Show.
What they told us we were doing was going to rid the state of frivolous lawsuits. So we said, okay, let's vote for this.
Leading up to the 2003 effort in Texas, the insurance companies primarily, but also the medical industry, started this drumbeat. They were alleging that medical malpractice lawsuits were soaring and the cost of healthcare was going way up. And they barraged the citizens of Texas with these frightening, scary messages that we were in some sort of crisis. But the reality was that simply wasn't true.
One of the things I think the public doesn't fully understand is that lawsuits are about a lot more than just seeking compensation for an individual plaintiff. By giving damages to the individual, the jury is sending a message about safety to the doctors, the nurses, the hospital. Please change your ways. Make healthcare safer to protect all of us.
Bill and Kelly Putnam experienced a nightmare scenario. They're in the nursing home with their father. The nurse administers medication improperly. As a result, he started to choke on the medication, and Kelly was forced to provide CPR on her father, while staff at the nursing home did nothing.
I was probably 6 inches away from my dad's eyes. He's no longer thrashing, he's no longer moving.
And so they took him to the hospital, they worked on him, cause of death, aspiration. Texas Board of Nursing ruled that the nurse not only did what we said she did, but she also said that the facility had her destroy the medical records for that day and create a new version. I decided to give a lawyer friend a call. I went through probably 10, maybe more. All of them I got the same letter back stating that because of tort reform, we cannot afford to litigate these types of cases.
What the 2003 restrictions did was make it economically unfeasible for most attorneys to take most medical malpractice cases. It's a cynical attempt to make it harder for people to go to court by making it harder for them to get representation.
I do remember when Patricia Whitman first contacted me, because as a cardiologist, I was pretty outraged when I looked at the medical records.
Patricia Whitman visited the emergency room complaining of chest pains. They look at her EKG. Doctor says, no, you've got indigestion, go home. The symptoms persist. Next day she goes in, sees a different physician. She's been having a heart attack.
Anyone looking at this EKG in a patient with chest pain has to consider that that patient is having an acute heart attack until proven otherwise. All of these abnormalities were essentially ignored, and a diagnosis of acid reflux was made in Patricia Whitman's case, and that was the wrong diagnosis.
The doctor came in and he said that I had substantial permanent heart damage and that I was, quote unquote, 100% disabled. Prior to the heart attack, I had a 3,500 square foot home that I took care of, and I was on my feet 8 hours a day going to cosmetology school. Then I would come home and cook for my kids and do whatever else needed to be done. I did it all. After the heart attack, I couldn't keep up with the house. I couldn't pay the mortgage. My life has changed a lot. I will never be able to do what I used to do. I have to depend on 5 heart medications that I have to take every day in order to survive. This is a letter from one attorney. It would be difficult to prove that the ER physician rose to the level of gross negligence. No attorney would take my case.
Tort reform involved a specific passage of language that said that a simple negligence standard no longer applied to emergency room care in Texas. The new standard was a gross negligence standard called willful and wanton negligence.
You have to prove in court that that doctor saw me walk through the door and said, that's my next victim. And of course that doesn't happen. And so people like Patricia Whitman, who find themselves in the emergency room and are misdiagnosed or harmed, face almost no ability for accountability. If you look back and you break down the arguments made by the insurance companies and medical industry about the cost, quality, access of healthcare in Texas, by every metric, we're worse off today than we were 10 years ago. It has made life better and easier for a small group of corporate interests at the expense of the rest of us.
These corporations, they have no fear because they know that they're not going to be held responsible. It shouldn't be about money. But unfortunately, that's the only language these people speak. That's why we're out protesting.
We will stand out on the street in front of the facility with signs that state what happened and make sure that they understand that we're not going to go away and that what they did was wrong.
We must restore meaningful accountability in this state so that another family does not go through the same nightmare that they've been through. If enough people in the public say enough is enough, then politicians have to think twice. We're never going to be able to compete with the special interests in terms of campaign contributions and money. Where we have to compete with them is in boots on the ground. The more people that rise up and say, we want our rights back, then they have to think about it. And once we've made them think about it, then half the battle is won.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show, third hour with me, your guest host, Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed News, filling in for Bill while Bill is down in Cuba learning how to play with the Buena Vista Social Club.
Yeah.
He's going to come back here, a whole different look, a whole different attitude.
Straw hat, Goyabera, the whole
thing. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. We've been talking a lot. It's like I said, it's a third hour. We have a lot of fun. So this has been a really, really good show. We're going to wrap it up with some really strong guests and some really strong. We're talking about domestic politics and what we've been doing and what we've been looking at in the country over the past couple of days, which has been a very surprisingly filled news week, considering it's a short week that ends with Memorial Day weekend. Do you have any big plans for Memorial Day weekend, Peter Ogburn?
No, zero. We're going to go to Awesome Con this weekend.
Cool.
But no.
Awesome, I should say.
It's pretty awesome. It should be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
George Takei will be there.
That actually is pretty cool.
I'm pretty stoked.
I'm going down to Lake Anna.
Oh yeah,
Lake Anna,
the man-made lake in Virginia. I'm gonna get a pontoon boat. I'm gonna putt around on a pontoon boat.
I actually the thing about Lake Anna is because it's supposed to be a little chilly-ish outside, but the thing about Lake Anna is it's usually pretty warm.
It is because it is the cooling. It is a cooling pond for a nuclear power plant.
Yeah,
but I mean,
so.
That's the charm, though, really.
Let industry work for you.
I've been swimming in that lake.
You know what I mean?
And look at me.
It's like a Simpsons episode. That's how you're looking at, better living through atomic energy. That's how I sort of view it. And it's a nice place. Also, it's a lovely place to go hang out. We got a beautiful house. This year, we rented a house that is actually a giant geodesic dome.
No, come on, really?
We're in a dome by a lake. You can't do better than that.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. Let's talk to our next guest. We have with us an old friend of mine, an old colleague of mine, a great a great reporter, now a great manager running one of the great institutions here in Washington, Roll Call newspaper, a daily newspaper that is run by Christina Bellantoni, editor-in-chief over there, which is just like so cool. I mean, one of the cool things about doing this for a long time is sometimes your friends like get amazing jobs like running a whole daily newspaper. So, Christina, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for all those nice things. I was feeling a little offended by the word old since I turned 36 yesterday, but
well, happy birthday.
Great old work.
I would say that's pretty amazing that you're 36 and running a daily newspaper.
Yeah, right.
You know, there are good days and bad days. This week has been good. It's always fun.
It has been a really newsy week and a good week for congressional coverage, right? I mean, there's just so much interesting things going on.
You know, we found that when there's all this harmony and they're getting things done, there's less interest in Congress. And then when people start fighting, everybody wants to know. Interesting.
So people say they want a Congress that gets along, but in fact, they don't like that at all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wonder if, since we have you and you are such a sort of broad Washington expert, if you could tell us a bit about this Congress, like sort of, look, we've been going for, I guess, a little more than, for a while now with this Congress. McConnell's in there. We're seeing now this big fight over trade, which is sort of the first instance where we're seeing a White House that has spent most of its time saying Congress is useless, we don't need Congress, we're going to go around Congress, is now really interested in getting Congress to help them out. And I wonder if you can sort of tell me where you think, what is this Congress capable of doing what the White House wants? Will it do what the White House wants? And kind of what does this Congress look like now that we're really into the meat of legislating?
Well, if you start with the trade deal, I would say that the Republicans are pretty excited and eager to work with the White House on this issue. And right now, it's the Democrats who are looking like obstructionists. And for the first time in a very long time, the Democrats actually have some power to wield, which is unusual. And one thing, I'm sure we're going to talk about Rand Paul, but if you notice, one of the first people to relieve him on the floor was Ron Wyden, who, really wants to make sure that he gets his say on several issues. So here he is backing Rand Paul up on a different issue. So, it's not looking great, I'd say, for the White House with Congress, but they will get a few things done. But largely, Republicans were very clear. Mitch McConnell, he talked to Roll Call, one of his first interviews after they won the majority last November, and he was very clear that the Republicans had learned the lesson from the election. He said, we get that people want us to govern. They're tired of sort of the gridlock. And what he did is he gathered all of his incoming chairmen, and he told them to make a list of bills that could have bipartisan support. Now, look, we know the Senate is dysfunctional, and we know it's politics. We know this is Washington. And by the way, there's all these guys running for president, which doesn't help things come together and work smoothly in Congress. But they are attempting to have, this nerdy term we use, like regular order. But it's actually important, right? Like you have issues that are allowed to get hearings. You have amendments that are allowed to be considered. That's all on the Senate side. The House side is still generally dysfunctional.
It's a bit of a mess.
But, not only have they gotten a decent amount of things done, they are actually working through the regular budget process. And the thing that got almost no attention is the fact that they finally fixed the doc fix, which are these patch payments to doctors through the Medicare problem. This has been an ache in every member of Congress's side for many years, and they finally actually solved the problem. That's a pretty big deal, and it's nerdy, and it's not as interesting as Hillary Clinton's burrito choices, but it definitely matters.
Yeah, I mean, and I think she got a burrito bowl, actually, I just want everybody in Radioland to know we are very aware of what Hillary Clinton ordered at Chipotle.
Facts matter.
I mean, and yeah, we're all fact-based here. She also got the guac, which I think is extra.
Yeah.
So she got the extra guac. Which you can afford because of her $30 million in speaking for the past 16 months. Listen, let's talk about this trade thing, though. I'll talk about Rand Paul a little bit, but this trade thing is... Who's gonna win this trade thing? Do you have any sense? I mean, are the Democrats and the progressive groups that have been working really hard to stop the president dead in his tracks on this trade thing going to win out in the end, or are the Republican allies the president is relying on and the business community that is pushing for these trade deals, and of course the president that has put a lot of weight behind them, or is he going to win? Do we have any sense at this point where that ends?
The liberal side is not going to win. Now,
Okay.
they have influence in this debate. Sorry, I know a lot of the listeners may hold out better hope. They have influence in this debate. And, particularly somebody like Elizabeth Warren, her voice is going to continue to shape the national debate in this country. But that said, it is a Republican-controlled Congress. This is something the president really wants, and everybody can point to an economic win in the end, even if 20 years from now it ends up being the biggest economic disaster in the country. And, look at all of the fights we're still having about NAFTA. So in that sense, I think that the Republicans and the president are going to win on this one. Is it going to be smooth and easy, and is it going to be exactly what they want? Probably not. But you're going to get a win for them.
So even through, so Boehner will be able to wrangle his caucus to do something the president wants?
I think they're going to make sure to frame it not like that. And for them, if they can exercise, I think from the political calculation, they determine that, the Democrats will continue to be pissed off at Obama, and it gives us a split between Obama and Hillary Clinton. Well, that's a win for the Republicans, too, in addition to something they can point to that they think will help the economy ultimately.
Interesting. Because you really have seen the progressives go all in on this thing. I kind of wonder what it will mean for organized labor and some of the other liberal groups that have really made this their end all and be all to lose. I'm interested in that. I've been doing a lot of reporting on that at BuzzFeed, but I don't know what the end result is of that. But it's going to be I think you're right. It's going to be a fascinating political battle in the end.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned Rand Paul. Let's quick. We talked a lot about him. We went through his filibuster, which of course he's now saying was actually a filibuster, delayed votes, and had an actual impact about the NSA. Can you help us understand a bit about why? You mentioned Ron Wyden, but why is it that Rand Paul, a Republican, is the lead guy on this, and not say a progressive Democrat, for example? Can you help us understand that how this NSA issue works out politically?
It's a good question. And the other day, I actually gave a tour of Congress, and we got to sit in during a colloquy between Pat Leahy and Mike Lee, who are strange allies on the other side of this issue. And I think that in some ways it's easy to dismiss him as just having presidential ambitions, and he's trying to get his name out there and make his name on this. But this is something he has worked toward and fought for and talked about. And that helped him to galvanize that libertarian street. But it's not just about politics in this. The American people don't like this. This is something that they can identify with. Everybody has email. They can understand that perhaps the government does go too far sometimes. Over the last couple of years, we've got a great story up right now about Edward Snowden and sort of his influence in this debate. And looking back now, do you still feel the same way, asking all these Republican hawks about him, right? And the Republicans that are saying, oh, we're going to prevent terrorism and, this is a dangerous world, and so we need to, not be as libertarian on this issue and sort of allow for some of these freedoms to be taken, that line doesn't resonate all that well, especially with young people. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like it's also an avenue that Hillary Clinton's really going to have to answer during the presidential campaign. I expect that it's going to continue to be a debate. And again, it's because people get it, and it makes people uncomfortable. And, nobody wants this country to be unsafe, but at the same time, there's got to be a balance. And so I think in some ways he's, captured the lightning in a bottle of an issue that does matter. That's my prediction. And Democrats, I think, are a little anxious on this because they don't want to be seen as the party that's weak on terrorism.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic because obviously Clinton is known as being pretty hawkish, and that's what we're used to. We've obviously seen Hillary Clinton emerge as a very different political voice than people have associated her with. Of course, her supporters and her people say she has not changed. She is sort of sticking to her progressivism. But that's certainly not the story that most people who followed her in 2007 and during her Senate career thought of with her. But so we don't know exactly where she'll shake out on this. But it's possible that you could have a Republican sort of trying to keep and shore up that libertarian, sort of fired up libertarian younger section of the GOP. They don't have a lot of young voters. They don't have a lot of entree into that world, and this is one way that they can get it versus a Hillary Clinton that could be a bit more hawkish on the issue.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, and I wonder, I think that'll be, this is one of the most interesting dynamics to watch, and I wonder how much the American people care about it now, but they may a lot when the election comes around. Do you feel like this is something that could actually have impact on the election?
I do, and I think that there's more to know, right? Every time you think you've heard the worst of these stories, there's one more story to come out. And I think that it's been an opportunity for a lot of good watchdog journalism and just really explaining to people, the real consequences of this. And look, like, some people are going to say, all right, fine, I just have an assumption that I have no privacy in this country and, like, that's going to keep me safe. I think that's a debate the country should have, and it doesn't really matter which side you end up on. We should be talking about it.
Well, we're going to be talking about it a lot, and you can read about it a lot in Roll Call. Christina Bellantoni, thank you so much for being on the air. It's always good to talk to you.
Have a good day.
This is the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris-Santoro. That was another great interview. We've got more great segments coming up. Stick with us. We're rounding out the sort of last run of this thing, but it's been great, and it's going to continue being great. So this is the Bill Press Show. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
They called her Little Sanju. She was born in a village at the foot of the Himalayas, the smallest of 7 brothers and sisters.
My family was very poor. To get by, we raised cows and we made small things for tourists out of bamboo. But we were always hungry, and no matter how hard he tried, my father was always in debt. When I was 11, my father told me I had to go to work making carpets. I had to leave with a man who took me to the carpet factory. The broker who took me away got paid, but they never paid my father anything. I made knots from 4 in the morning until 8 at night. There was never a day off. I was always hungry. I cut my fingers while weaving and had to weave with cut fingers. My hands began to look like my grandmother's. I cried every night. I thought the rest of my life would be only this.
It takes 1 million knots to make one 8x10 rug. In the 1990s, 1 million children were enslaved making carpets in South Asia. Then a hero entered the picture. It was you. If you knew how these carpets were made, you would no longer think they were so beautiful. And if you could choose a better rug, your buying power could end child slavery in the rug industry. From that simple idea, Goodweave was born. Here's how it works. To earn the Goodweave label, companies agreed not to employ children. Goodweave makes sure by conducting surprise inspections. When children are found, Goodweave helps them.
2 years ago, a Goodweave inspector named Grona found me in the factory. When I saw him, I was scared, but Grona put his arm around me and told me it would be okay. Grona took me to Hamro Gar, a home for rescued carpet kids run by Goodweave. I'm the first person in my family to ever go to school.
Today, thousands of children like Sanju have been educated and rescued by Goodweave. And because you chose the Goodweave label, 3/4 of those million children weaving carpets are now free. And Sanju, with Goodweave's support, she's able to attend her village school and live at home where she belongs. Now that's a beautiful rug that tells a beautiful story. Stand with Sanju. Insist on the Goodweave label.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is my computer.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on Talker TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is indeed the Bill Press Show. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed News, filling in for Bill. We've had another great half hour. We're going to round it out and have another set of guests. It's just all going to be great. You know, I keep saying it's going to be great, and because I really mean it. I really mean it's going to be really great. Now, we have a wonderful opportunity here, which is that one of the best reporters in Washington, Chris Geidner, the legal editor for BuzzFeed News, is with us. And the thing is, it's very difficult to talk to Chris Geidner before, say, like 10 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to be doing it right now at 8:24 a.m. on the East Coast. This is a amazing radio moment, folks. So, Chris Geidner, thank you for getting up. You're awake, you're up, you're jazzed. You're going to talk about it. Talk to us.
I am in the office in DuPont.
You're in the office?
I am in the office. It's a special day.
This is literally this is radio history. This is like we got Man Walks on Moon.
Yeah,
this is news history. Man Walks on Moon. Chris Geidner's up at the Detective 24 in the office. The thing about it is, the man, he puts like 12 hours into a 6 all the time he's at the office. He works all the time, so it doesn't really matter when he gets up because the news can't sleep on him. That's really what I'm saying. Listen, Chris, let's talk less. We talked about you getting up and everything, but let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff you have been writing about. You write about a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of legal issues. But I'm really interested in sort of this new generation of the sort of LGBT civil rights fight that we have been looking at over the past few years, which is moving into the transgender area that you have been writing a lot about. Can you sort of give us an overview of where that debate is and sort of where the parties are on it? It's kind of a broad question, but sort of anything that you have that can sort of set the stage for what I think is going to be a big part of the conversation for the next year at least.
Yeah, I think that hits on sort of the key question that's out there right now, because basically what happened is that transgender issues have been ignored for a long time and have not received they've either not received any coverage or they've received really caricatured coverage from a lot of media outlets and from a lot of elected officials and from a lot of executive officials I really think that one of the sort of hidden legacies of the Obama administration is going to be the way that the administration changed the way that transgender issues were approached, because I think at this point it's almost impossible to imagine any change being implemented that would affect sexual orientation, which is gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, but not gender identity, which is transgender people.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everything that the administration does affects sexual orientation and gender identity. And so what you have is a system in which a lot of the federal underpinnings for protection that Obama has taken from the federal contractor executive order, which bans federal contractors from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, to HHS, to OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, and federal workers. All of these things have advanced with gender identity protections, but we still have this underlying issue with education and more general awareness where just this week, our colleague Dom Holden reported on the 8th transgender woman of color who was killed this year in Philadelphia. And a lot of the times when these killings happen, they turn out to be hate motivated. They turn out to be because the person is transgender.
Chris, I got to cut you off, but read more about the stuff on that Chris Gunner is writing about. It's really important stuff he's talking about. I'm Evan McMorrison with the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am Evan McMarra-Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed, guest hosting for Bill. You can also follow me on Twitter at Evan McSan, as well as at BP Show the Show. So at Evan McSan for me.
A must follow, I should add.
Thank you very much. Peter Ogburn with us still. Listen, we've talked about a lot of really serious stuff for the past hour or so, hour and a half, 2 hours, long time. What else is going on in the news?
All right,
Peter?
I'm glad you asked, Evan. I've got some stuff that I've been saving that I wanted to talk to you about because, despite the fact that the high in Washington, D.C. today is 55 degrees, summer is coming.
It is.
Summer is coming. So, beach reads. Everybody's want to know what you're going to read at the beach. Bill Gates got way ahead of the curve. He put out his beach read list. Books you should definitely read this summer, according to Bill Gates.
I'm on the edge of my seat at what Bill Gates' beach reads are.
We can do the next story.
No. I want
Here's
it.
what we got.
I want it. Bring it.
He says you should read Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brush.
Okay.
The Magic of Reality by Richard Dawkins.
Oh, boy.
Which is an interesting pull.
That's a real page turner.
That's a real interesting pull.
Yeah.
What If by Randall Munroe.
Okay.
He also suggests another Randall Munroe book, XKCD, and then On Immunity by Eula Bliss. I haven't heard of any of those books.
Well, Richard Dawkins.
Well, I know who Richard Dawkins is. Yeah.
But that's, that, from what my understanding is, that is a pretty heavy load.
Rolling in the deep there.
Yeah, this is not the standard
list,
what has Stephen King put a small New England town through this time? which is generally where I would go for a beach read. Well,
yeah, I really want to read Richard Dawkins at the beach.
Actually, and I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to geek out just here for a second here. Neil Stephenson, who I have loved since his book Snow Crash as a kid, when I was got in the cyberpunk thing as a teen. Has a new book in which the moon explodes. And, of course, it's like 850 pages about what happens after that and all this sort of stuff that goes in with all that. That's awesome. And I think that is what I'll be reading this summer.
You should. Is it based on the Mr. Show sketch where they blow up the moon?
It's not. I think it inadvertently explodes. It's not. It's not like
gonna bomb the moon.
We're gonna blow up the moon.
Okay.
Blow it up.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about the beach reads thing is I can't read or write. So,
you can fill up the iPad with beach podcasts.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Of the Bill Press Show, I assume.
Also happening, the NBA playoffs are underway. Last night, the Cleveland Cavaliers were in Atlanta, where LeBron James led the Cavaliers to a victory. 97-89 was the final score there. They're taking on the Hawks, and the winner of that series will go on to face either the Rockets or the Warriors. The Warriors won their game on Tuesday night, 110-106. So we will see this evening at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, the Rockets and the Warriors in Game 2.
It's kind of cool that the Cavs are doing so well with LeBron back. Like, that's a storyline that you wanted to be a real storyline. Like, going back to his hometown.
Yeah.
Playing so well. Like, I didn't really like the whole Miami era. I didn't like that. I didn't like it
at all.
It seemed like silly and sort of like you can go be this massive local hero, which I think is one of the coolest things. I'm glad to see that the Cavs are doing so well. I was really upset when the Wizards went out because I'm not a huge sports guy. I do like basketball a lot, and I was, I don't really care about hockey at all. And I know the hockey team has been doing its thing, and that didn't work out well for them. And the Nats, they're just going to disappoint you. So
they always, they will.
So
they did win yesterday.
Yeah, and they won. They're doing well. They're in first place in their division, I believe. And Bryce Harper is having the month of I get it.
Yada yada.
Let's
Teddy
see what
Roosevelt's going to win the race, and then it's all going to go straight to hell. I mean, come on.
That's what's going to happen.
That's right.
But this has been one of the most exciting and impressive NBA seasons in history, and I think two of the most exciting teams are the Warriors and the Cavaliers, who are both leading their series. So if they face each other, that's going to be a pretty legendary finals, I think.
Did you see that thing? This is a bit of an aside, but you see the Clippers when they were playing and they won, I think, and they were booed in Dodger Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
In Los Angeles, Dodgers fan booed the Clippers.
They don't like that. Yeah.
What is the deal with these Clippers?
LA's got a weird sports teams. First of all, you got two basketball teams in L.A.
Playing in the same building.
Playing in the same building, the Lakers and the Clippers, and you kind of have to choose sides. And the Lakers had a garbage season, just an utterly garbage season. Just a terrible season.
Yeah.
So the Clippers actually did well, and I guess people can't be happy for them. I don't like it.
If I lived in Los Angeles, and apologies to the California listeners, but if I lived in Los Angeles, I would have to be a Clippers fan. I mean, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole stadium is the wrong color. I mean, everything about it. It's like what are these guys doing? It's going to roll in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One final story before we go. This comes from China. In Jinan, China, there is a restaurant that is offering a discount to women who show up in miniskirts. Now, here's the thing. They discount can range from 20% to 90% off of your meal. It all depends on how short their skirt is.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Shout out to China. Who can still get away with this type of stuff.
This sounds like something that would be like this. This is like a Hooters promotion.
Yeah. Yes.
It sounds like to me.
Yeah, pretty much. So if you want to get 90% off of your hot pot meal at this restaurant, you go in with a very, very, very short skirt, apparently,
but to go
and not be able to live with.
But
yourself.
to go like eat dinner,
you're right?
Like so, these women are going to be sitting down.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, but they're going to be sitting down, and there's going to be tables,
right?
So no one's going to see the skirts,
right?
Because they're going to be sitting down.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's
from the walk from the door to the table, I guess, is worth it to this owner. I don't know.
It seems this is very odd.
Anyway, I wouldn't go there.
I don't think this is not a place. The food's going to be very good. I mean, they're not leaning heavy into the food here.
Right. Not come eat our delicious food.
People are like, oh, Evan, because I know I'm from North Carolina. Oh, Evan, Hooters got the best wings. It doesn't have the best wings.
No,
they're expensive. They're not very good.
Right. You know what's not good? Boiled wings from Hooters.
This is what I'm saying. Like, it's like, why would you assume that would be the best things? Anyway, so
they have a wonderful bleach sauce that they put on their wings.
So listen, no matter what length of skirt you're wearing, and mine is tastefully right at my knees. Yeah. Bill Press Show, we got 20 more minutes left. I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, filling in for Bill. Come back. We're going to wrap things up. It's going to be great.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
I'm Evan McMorris Santoro, White House reporter for BuzzFeed News, filling in for Bill Press. And listen, if you do this guest hosting thing enough, they let you have the segment where two amazing chefs come in and give you booze. So this is what we're doing here at the Bill Press Show for the next, few minutes. This is we're going to round this out. We have in the show, we have like a power couple of DC gastronomy here. We've got Chef Kyle Bailey from Birch and Barley, a great restaurant in the Arsenal, Church Key, sort of the 14th Street corridor, right?
Absolutely.
All right. And then we have Tiffany McIsaac from Buttercream Bake Shop, and you guys are a married chef team.
Yep.
So do you eat like super well at home?
Actually, our self-consumption standards are very low.
We do not.
We just do really good cooking for other people.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you get home, you're like, okay, screw it.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're doing Stofers, I understand. They're here to talk about a chef-led, a happy hour event that is going to happen here in D.C. next week, Thursday, May 28th, at Stanton and Green on Pennsylvania Avenue Southeast. It is a event that is focused on it's a fundraiser to help end child hunger in America. You go out there, you drink, you eat some really great food, and you get to help end child hunger, do it for a cause. It's great. And you mentioned there's a competition aspect to it. Can you explain a bit about that?
There is. So it's a series of chefs that are, this is the fourth round, I believe, and every time they pick a bunch of top local chefs, they come in and make a drink, and then there's two different judging aspects. There's a critic's choice where a bunch of, kind of trained professionals come in, and then there's also the people's choice. So there's two chances to win. I won critic's choice last time with my fabulous husband as my bar back. So if he wins this time, which I hope he does, we'll be up against each other in the last round.
Ooh. Oh, man.
Fingers crossed.
How does that work? Do you going to keep like secret recipes written down for each other? Not going to show them to each other?
I'm clearly going to sabotage him.
What I've done to you today, actually.
Yeah, he mixed my drink today, so don't, if something's wrong with it.
Okay. Well, listen, we'll put information about this event, which it looks like really, really cool, and it's like $45 if you're in D.C. I mean, great cause, great food for you. You're doing the right thing. Go to Stanton and Green next week. Do this thing. We're gonna put the details up on the BP Show at BP Show Twitter feed. Now, what do you have for me?
Well,
to consume?
I brought the winning cocktail from last time, which is called the Out From Below.
Okay.
Kyle named that after a song that he listened to a lot last summer. So this is, it's kind of like a take on a sidecar.
Okay.
So it's brandy, Cointreau, lime, and then we also add some orange and grapefruit, and then the glass is rimmed with Campari and sugar. It's pretty strong, so watch out.
So for our listeners at home that are not watching this on Talker TV, this is not a small drink I've been having. This is a very large drink. It is $8.47 on the East Coast, which is, usually I'm about an hour in drinking at this point, so I'm glad to finally have it. So, okay. So I'm taking the first sip now. I don't really know how to explain this on the radio, but
this is the breakfast of champions here.
I know.
Oh man,
it's strong.
That is super strong, and that is delicious. Where can people find this recipe that you did this? Can people make this at their own houses?
Yeah, it's easy, but I don't know. They'd have to ask me for the.
All right, so or come to DC.
Or come to, so
go to Stanton and Green.
Right, yeah. Well, they can try Kyle's this round, and then, in the final round.
Okay, and this is called the Down From Below.
Out From Below.
Out From Below. What does that mean? Is something going to happen to me?
I don't know. You'll have to find out. Come on Thursday, and we'll see.
All right. Well, So that's the first one. What do we have, Kyle?
I think we're going to call this one Zelda Vacation. Yeah, I took a few days off recently, and I just played Zelda. And it was
like the old gold cartridge?
No, one of the newer ones.
All right,
it was great, man.
right.
It was really great.
Yep.
Take on a Blood and Sand, replacing the scotch with dark rum and a cherry liqueur that we made in-house.
Okay, and what else is in it besides that? Can you tell us more? That's the two things that are in it?
That's pretty much it. And some blood orange juice.
Okay.
Also strong.
Also large. I'm taking a sip of this one, too. That's really delicious. That's like it's got some spice to it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
that's great.
Is that the Zelda you're tasting? I guess
that's a Zelda. I'm going to try the first one again just to make sure we have a nice balance of everybody gets a fair shot here. Wow, those are great. This is good. This is a great way to start the day. I'm really enjoying this. So these are going to be in competition for each other now. Is that the deal with this?
No, mine won the last.
So this one. This one won, which is the one with the rim glass. You're watching it, which is great. And then this is up for competition this time.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm getting a preview of what you're
getting it.
How do you go about creating one of these things as a cocktail making person? Either of you?
We don't eat a lot at home, but we do drink a lot at home. So and also every season we pick a new liquor to kind of play around with. We had the summer of last year, successful. We had the winter of gin. It went really well. The autumn of rye was really great. And then the spring of slings. We did all slings. And that's kind of where these cocktails have come from.
I wonder if you guys as chefs can talk a bit about like how into cocktails everybody is. I mean, do you feel like people's taste is getting better? Like, I mean, you guys cook important stuff for people. You make these drinks. Are people expecting, better quality stuff from people now?
I would say absolutely, yes. I think people are becoming better educated about food, and food rules, man, and drinks rule. So why not? It's such a happy.
I mean, it's funny because like my parents, when you talk about mixed drinks, a lot of them were just sort of like the bottle of mixer and the drink, and just sweet, and it's not something that a lot of people like. But now you find people are drinking these cocktails all the time because you put a lot of effort into them. I mean, you definitely, this is actually a craft, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I see something else over here, too, so I'm going to ask, what else do you have for us, Tiffany?
Well, so last time to kind of raise a little more money for the charity, I put some desserts out, and if people left tips in the jar, they would get a dessert. So I brought a few for you this time. I brought some peanut butter buckeyes and some snickerdoodle macarons.
Ooh, great.
And I'll be making some desserts for this event as well. So
can I get these on the camera somehow? Let me try to... Can you see these now? Does that work? Is that working for us?
How long have you been making pastries?
About 15 years. As young as I look, I know it's hard to believe, but...
What goes into tell us about I mean, we know a lot about sort of about what we're dealing with food these days. People care about local ingredients and so on. So what does that mean for the baking world?
Well, for the baking world, I mean, it's a little bit tricky because most of those ingredients are, sugar, butter, flour, things like that, you don't really worry about getting as local. But we do use a lot of local vegetables and fruits and, blueberries, strawberries, carrots, things like that.
But are we in the same sort of renaissance, for baking that we are for other kinds of food?
Absolutely, especially in D.C. I mean, I announced the opening of my bakery, and I feel like, within a month, 3 or 4 more people announced, which is really exciting. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of bakeries in D.C.
Yeah, that's great. And, I'm very interested in sort of what the industry is like. I mean, what are people wanting that you guys are making? I mean, I know a lot of people who are like having gluten issues now somehow. Yes. Apparently, everybody's got gluten problems.
Those are actually both gluten-free.
Really? Well, they're delicious. Yeah. They're fantastic. And what about like on the food side? Like, what are people wanting from your restaurant these days? Like when you're making stuff, like what's the demand for?
Well, that's goes back to the people. They're educating themselves, and they want cooler, different stuff. I never thought that I was going to be able to sell liver as much as I do.
Really?
Yeah, but it's it's antibiotic free, it's hormone free, local beef, man. And I meet the farmers, and I shake their hands, and they actually can tell me about how they raise their animals.
That's great. I mean, I just think it's a great time. Like DC, if you're not from DC and you're listening to this, you haven't been here in a while, you should come here because the restaurant explosion in this town is just amazing, and the available options are just amazing, and the stuff that's happening is just really great. I mean, there's just I'm like everybody else tries to claim to be a foodie, but I really just have a great time going around to restaurants and finding out the new things people are making. And I do think at events like this, at Stanton and Green next week, are a chance to really just sort of get into and sample the stuff, right? I mean, there's going to be small. You said there's going to be small bites here, so we're going to have like various types of samples people can try.
There'll be some desserts and some savory snacks and lots of cocktails. And I think, for us, this cause is really important because, obviously food is a huge part of our life. And to think of the fact that 1 in 5 kids in the United States doesn't have access to food like we do is just really horrible. So any little bit that we can do and that, people can do by coming to this fun event. I mean, I can't think of a more fun way to, raise money for a charity.
Yeah, which is a strange disparity because we do have such a new focus on eating quality food, and then we also have people who are the access to. Some people don't have access to it at all.
Right. No, it's pretty terrifying. So if you just go to nokidhungry.org and get a ticket, you can help with that.
All right.
It's that easy.
All right. And sort of anything else you want to talk about in terms of these drinks that you've made, or anything else going on that we have just a minute or two left, just to.
When you come vote for Kyle, obviously.
Absolutely, please. You will want to be voting for me.
And then when would the final battle be? If you guys want to be interested.
I'm not sure of the date. They kind of set them as they go, but people will have to kind of stay tuned. They can probably check out the website and find that information.
Okay. This is the Bill Press Show. This is literally the greatest thing I've ever done on my life, was on the radio, just drinking on the radio, which I will be doing more of in the break while you're waiting for us to finish the show. The Bill Press Show. Stay with us. We're going to wrap it up, and thanks very much for listening.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
All right, folks, this is Evan McMorris-Santoro filling in for Bill Press for the past 3 hours. It's been great. I have a buzz on, so that's nice.
Yeah.
It's 8:58 a.m. I have a buzz on. Hi, Mom, by the way. Listen, I didn't mention in the last segment, go to join.nokidhungry.org/chef behind bars. Chefs behind bars to learn more about the event that we talked about. This is the Bill Press Show. Thanks a lot for listening. They'll be back tomorrow with a great show.
This is the Bill Press Show.